Hello, this is Module 1, Video F, I believe we are now on, and this is all about accessing values in data frames. So, exciting stuff, we're getting into it. So, in a data frame in Python, there are several ways to access your values, and they tend to kind of be used a little differently based on what you're doing. So, if you've worked in Python before, if you've done lists, especially what are they called? Multidimensional nested lists. This first way will probably be the most familiar to you, and that is the bracket notation. So how this works is get the name of your data frame, and then in your first bracket after it, you put your column name. And actually, I'm going to erase that, and so if I just do data frame bracket column name, it's going to print out that whole column. Obviously, I'm not seeing it all here, but you can see that it's, my 96,000 lines long. And if I look at some other columns, there I go, just going to print this off so I can copy and paste. So I can do the same thing. I can come here and grab daily summary. Same thing, I can come here and do it with visibility. This is just going to grab any column that I want. And I find that it's the most commonly used when you're just specifically accessing one column. However, you can also access rows. So I can come in here and, I can just do a 5, do a random row. And now what that's done, I've given it a column, I've given it a row, so it is returning to me a specific value. So that's the first way, bracket notation. I printed that off twice, that's funny. Okay, so the second through fifth ways, I guess, are a bit more common, and this is using the .at or .loc functions, and they're methods, and then I'll also show you the iloc and iat. So these are the preferred ways of accessing values, and these two functions, .at and .loc, are going to access values based on their column and row names. So names, we're talking about strings. So they're opposite from the bracket notation, which, although they still use brackets, which can be a little confusing, but if you're using .at or .loc or the related ones, it's always going to be rows first and then columns. So df.at, what it does is it is going to access one specific value. So the syntax, as you can see right here, I'm actually just going to pop this into a new cell so I can run things one at a time. So it's df.at and then brackets, row, comma, column. And I mentioned that we're going to be using names. So in this specific data frame, our indexes are just indices. They're just numbers. You can have data frames where your indexes are actually strings. So I don't know if you had a database of people, maybe you could do their name or something like that. A lot of times they're just going to be numbers. But if the index was a string, I would have to use a string. I couldn't just use a number here. And for the column name, I'm definitely going to have to use the column name. So I run this, and it returns 0.83, which is what row 4 humidity happens to be. And just to show you, if I change this to a number, no bueno, not going to look. I'm going to get, I'm guessing, a key error. Yep, it's saying there's no column name 5. I can't find that. df.loc functions very similarly, except it gives us a few more options. So that's not what I wanted to do. I can use df.loc exactly like I did df.at to get that same 0.83. But I can also use df.loc to, I guess I should say .loc, I don't need to see the df part. I can also use it to get chunks of data. So how this works, you can see right here, instead of just giving one kind of number, I can give a range. So what I'm doing right here is I'm saying, okay, take row 4 to row 20, and then take column temperature to column humidity. So if I run this, oh, and then I called it something, so I guess if I want to see that, I should return it. So I'm getting this whole segment of data here, according to what I've picked there. Now, let's say I wanted to grab all of the columns from temperature to humidity. I can do that if I just come in here and erase that. I need to still, oh, but not completely. So for this to work, the colon needs to be there, the comma needs to be there, but if I don't put any numbers in, then it's going to take all of those columns. Now, of course, I can't see it, but I can see down here that that would be returning all of those rows. I can also kind of mix and match, so I can have, I can just put one row and then have the colon notation over here. That works as well. And when it comes to, so I'm just going to take that back to the 4 to 20. Then when it comes to just wanting to get rows and not wanting to get columns, I can just completely delete the column information, and it's going to know I'm just talking about rows. So that is the .at and the .loc. And I'd say when you're trying to access a specific value or a specific block of values, these are the most commonly used. Assuming that you want to do things by names. So the pair to the .at and the .loc are the iat and iloc. And I guess, I don't know if that's how people say them. But so these work very similarly. The only difference is they're going to grab things by their indices rather than by their names. So if I want to return this same chunk that I was returning over here, instead of saying from temperature to humidity, I need to figure out what the indices of those columns are. So if I go, I go back up here to my list of columns, I see that, let's see, was I trying to go from temperature to humidity? So 0, 1, 2, 3 is temperature, 4, 5 is humidity. So here I've put in 4 to 20 and 3 to 5. I'm going to print that out. But it's not quite the same, is it? So the one nuanced difference between these is when you use loc, it's going to go and grab all of the rows from row 4 to up to and including row 20. And then it's going to grab all of the columns from temperature up to and including humidity. The iloc is just a little bit different in that it is going to grab the rows from 4 to 20 but not including 20, and from 3 to 5 but not including 5. So this, I think of it, if it almost acts a little more like the range function does, how it always like leaves off that last one. So if I actually want this to return the same thing that my loc function did, I'm going to have to increment these up one. So change that to that and that to that. And now these two segments are going to look the same. So that is how you access values in DataFrames. The 5 ways: the bracket notation, at, loc, iat, and iloc. Hope you enjoyed it.